The global provider's approach to cloud-based services with Tim Jackson of Globecast. Take it away and teach us, Tim.
Thank you, Troy. For those of you that don't know who Globecast is, we are a division of Orange, which is a very, very large mobile operator primarily based in Europe and Africa. It's a $40 billion company. We have about 155,000 employees around the world and 265 million customers. So Orange as a company is a B2C company that provides services mostly through France, as I mentioned, but also throughout Europe and most of and a good chunk of Africa. Now, under Orange is a division called Orange Business Services, which is a high-end IT company. It's a B2B company. In Orange Business Services, we're in about 160 countries, and 24,000 of those 156,000 employees work for OBS. And then Globecast, and that's also more of a B2B company. Under Orange Business is Globecast, and we are the media services division of Orange Business. So we serve the media community, leveraging all of the assets that Orange as a company has. So Orange globally, we own and operate our own fiber network, and within Globecast, we operate 20 or so satellite platforms. So what we're trying to do at Globecast, the company's been around really as a compilation of a bunch of separate companies since about 1986, maybe even a little bit earlier than that. So we've been doing traditional media services going all the way back to the analog days and even in the very earliest of satellite communications days through a combination of contribution services, distribution services, media management services. So unlike some of the companies that we've heard from, especially in this morning's keynote from BAMTech, we haven't had the ability really to start from scratch using the best and most available technologies and kind of jump into the game. We've had to kind of evolve from very, very old technologies and old methods and old ways of doing business. So what we've decided to do is looking at how some of these technologies are now enabling efficiencies is to take our three major media centers that Globecast has in Los Angeles, California, London, England, and Singapore, and bring them together in kind of a virtualized and cloud-based environment. So what exactly does that mean? So we'll tell you. So what we have here on the screen is really what each, at least in the middle pink and the green part, is what each of our three facilities around the world operate as today, really as individual islands. Sure, they're all connected by satellite and fiber, and we move materials regularly between the three, but you have an entire infrastructure, mostly based on hardware and particularly labor, that's triplicated in each of those facilities. And we're really at the point now where we don't necessarily have to do things that way. We can leverage kind of the best of breed functionality, workflows, people, and functions that we have at Europe and Asia and the US and kind of cross-pollinate across those different facilities. The other thing that we're able to do is rather than operate three separate 24/7 technical operation centers that require full-time staffing and backup staffing in three separate locations, is over time use these facilities to back each other up and monitor and operate them in kind of a follow-the-sun virtualized environment. So that is our plan, that is where we're heading, and we're really happy that folks like Harmonic and others are offering technologies that are allowing us to do that now. The media factory that Globecast is developing, and we're operating now in one of our facilities in London, is something that we're looking to export to all of the others, and really going to be looking to put this out through an RFP coming up soon to really see what kind of options we have available for us to do that. This is driven by really a few different things. The number one is money. The traditional way of having an infrastructure-based approach to doing television is becoming less and less cost-effective as companies are able to put virtually all of their content into the cloud and operate things incredibly cheaply. We don't really want to go down that route because we still feel that there's a very important function to be had by companies like us where there's a human touch and also an ownership and a responsibility that we can provide to all our media customers for managing their content. So a fully public cloud or a fully virtualized, hands-off, fully automated workflow is not something we're looking to do, but really to maximize and leverage the efficiencies to make it a little bit cheaper. So why would we be doing this? I think the reason that we want to take the approach of still maintaining a physical presence in each location, and clearly if you were to go to a fully virtualized environment, you don't need to do that, because by definition you don't have to have a physical presence for each location. But still, there is enough localization and enough hands-on and enough really demand from the customers that they want to have a local presence of some sort. They want to be able to see and touch and feel all of their assets and know that things do exist physically in a place, but they also want those efficiencies that can be gained by a large company being able to leverage all of their assets across the globe. So for instance, in a place like Singapore, we do a tremendous amount of local language customization and local cultural customization. There are some countries that require certain edits to content and adjustments to content that can only really be done by the knowledge that exists in those locations. So by removing all of the functionality from any one geographic area, we don't really have the ability to leverage that knowledge base and that competency in each of the different locations. A couple of the services that we do that we envision doing in a virtualized and cloud-based environment are the managed playout. Right now, all of this stuff exists on servers and playout systems in all of the 3 different locations. We do limited monitoring of these in the different locations, but the control still exists locally in the 3 locations I mentioned. So by moving this into more of a virtual environment, we're going to be able to manage the playout in any of the 3 regions by any of the 3 regions. So that will also give us a lot of backup capabilities that we don't currently have today, even if we decide to keep 24-hour staffing, 24/7 staffing at all of the different locations. The services that we provide today, we expect to be able to do exactly the same and even more, particularly with some of the functions that would normally be a regular daytime function. QC often isn't a 24/7 operation, real-time QC. It's usually done during a single day shift. So by allowing 3 different day shifts to be able to do that around the world and be able to validate content in different locations, we'll be able to really triple the efficiencies that we have today, and thus lowering the cost for our customers. Really, the access to local experts that I mentioned earlier, I think, is one of the critical functions that I believe is underestimated when companies are considering virtualizing all of their operations, because there are some specific nuances that are required for localization, as content creators really want to be able to show to their consumers that they are providing a very local and customized service, so it appears that it is originating from each region rather than from another part of the world. The optimized operating costs, though, are really what is driving this. Often we hear at these things and we talk about technology in search of a market, and for me personally, a lot of the virtualized and cloud buzzword stuff has been that up until quite recently for us. But now we're really seeing how the advances in some of these products and services, and in particular how it can really help us save money and leverage efficiencies globally and really help us reduce our CapEx and our OpEx costs by applying that across the different parts of the world. So that, to me, is the biggest, single most greatest advantage of doing managed playout in a virtual environment. And also rapid deployment and scalability as well. One thing that we have learned at Globecast is that competencies and services do exist in different parts of the world. We do a whole lot more OTT and VOD workflows, for example, in London than we currently do in the US. And to scale something up right now in London takes a much shorter period of time than it does for us to do in other parts of the world. So by having a more virtualized environment across Globecast globally, we're going to be able to take advantage of the rapid deployment, the scalability that exists in those locations already. Channel localization is the most critical part of all of this, because when we work with our content partners for the development of a new channel and the operational part of a new channel. It goes much beyond, far beyond just the content itself and its applicability to a local market. The language customization is critical, the editorial is critical, the interstitial material is critical, and a lot of the compliance is very critical as well. So this allows us to leverage all of those local resources in different parts of the world to create content that fits into the markets. I've been focusing a lot on this discussion on our three major media centers that we have and our operational infrastructure areas of Europe, the US, and Asia. But we also have people and personnel in different parts of the world as well, such as South Africa, in the Middle East, in Italy, in Russia. So we can leverage those folks as well by tying those locations, which currently don't do a huge degree of operational services, but we can take advantage of the local expertise in those areas, particularly for the localization, language customization, and access to those markets through our fiber, satellite, and IP networks. So that's more on the cloud-based localization services. Ads and branding, a lot of that stuff is very difficult to pull in and operate from a different market because it's all handled very, very much locally. So that's why I emphasize that we don't see the efficiencies that we can gain by bringing a lot of the operational and labor infrastructure together. I don't see that reducing the impact and the need for our three major hubs, because there's still so much work that has to be done physically in a market by humans, just because of the access that you need to what happens in those markets from an ad perspective, from a promo perspective. We just see it being able to run more efficiently by leveraging the underlying operational infrastructure across the different markets. Disaster recovery is another thing that we currently do regularly for a lot of our customers now, and this is really for the large-scale customers want a complete replication of their existing primary path, whether it be for an uplink service, whether it be for a master control, playout, operational service, or just greenfield content stored somewhere else. But by having three facilities interconnected regularly, it gives us a much easier path and a much more seamless way of protecting people's content around the world. Even if you want to have a US channel protected, you could protect it even outside the country for even greater security, and vice versa. We can back up Asia with Europe and things like that. And right now, to do that, it requires a fully replicated investment in hardware, in software, and to a large degree need So you're really duplicating everything for a disaster recovery service, where in the future we can only we'll only need to duplicate a small portion of that, which is very helpful. Media services is what we call all the pre and post production and integration and things like that. A lot of this work is done usually on a 9-to-5 basis. So you either have to, and a lot of it can be pretty costly. We know that editing and post-production, audio post, design, a lot of that work is pretty extensive, and you typically have to rely on experts within your own markets, but there are some technical expertise that you can leverage in different regions, and in particular allowing people that are working during their regular business hours in a certain part of the world to provide services for the rest of the world, and to be able to have a visibility of what workflows are required, what assets need to be adjusted, what work needs to be done, and have those tools available across the whole universe is something that we see as being tremendously valuable for our customers, both from a workflow, a completion, and a cost effectiveness standpoint as well. OTT is something that we do extensively, and you've seen a lot of presentations on this already at the show, so I'll go through this kind of quickly. But one of the things that Globecast does, and a lot of companies have said that they do this as well, is a modular approach to OTT services. So we look at OTT both in the standpoint of live linear and VOD, and we currently do offer these services in all regions of the world as an a la carte service. So you can pick and choose from any of these types of things. However, typically it requires us to have the expertise located in each of the facilities, or have a time delay in getting it all prepared. So we're really excited about being able to take advantage of the expertise, the infrastructure, the workflow, and the policies and procedures that exist in different regions of the world, and bringing that entire operation to Globecast as a seamless company and be able to do this much more seamlessly, quickly, more cost effectively to customers no matter where they're located anywhere in the world. So that's something that I think we see a tremendous amount of benefit from. One of the big areas of expertise for us, since we really got our start in the contribution side of the business with origination of live sporting and news events throughout the entire world, really, bringing this into an OTT environment and having to ingest this stuff into OTT platforms is something that requires a lot of expertise and also a lot of resources to be able to get those different feeds in. So right now that's a thing that we do have fairly well connected across our 3 facilities, and one of the largest aspects of our business now is a full global distribution of events that have to take place. Globecast has been involved in virtually all of the World Cups and all of the Olympics going back to the 1980s, and the traditional method for delivery of those has been live satellite feeds, and then recently live fiber feeds, and then even more recently injection into OTT platforms and bringing that into more of an IP environment. So by bringing this together across all our facilities, we see a lot more of that business taking place. One of the biggest barrier to entries for live events has been the cost of having to receive a fiber feed or receive a satellite feed, and now it makes it a whole lot easier to be able to do this in smaller bandwidths and easier distribution mechanisms. However, the requirements for licensing, the rights, the content protection, especially for very high-end events, still exist. So we really have to apply that expertise that we have for managing the licensing and rights and DRM and encryption and all that sort of stuff across the entire network. We need to make sure that that is maintained, and that's something that we tend to do quite a bit of. So OTT VOD, much the same way, and again, this is something that everyone is familiar with, all of these different parts and pieces. We tend to work, as others do, with best-of-breed subcontractors and all of those different areas. It is a la carte operation. We do a tremendous amount of work in this area in the UK, particularly for the BBC, and we do a lot in Asia as well. And leveraging that expertise and being able to do more in different parts of the world is something that we're incredibly focused on as well. So that is what I wanted to talk to you about. It's, for us, really a learning curve and an area of extreme excitement for us to be able to take a company that's been around for well over 30 years and kind of reinvent how we operate operationally and from a technological perspective. So for us, it just the availability of tools out there are going to enable us to sell our services and provide much better and more cost-effective services to our customers as we move forward.